Love Conroe. Welcome to a brand new edition of Nerd Thug Radio, right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations, and we're streaming worldwide at irlonestar.com. As always, you can check us out on facebook.com/Nerd Thug Radio, where the magic happens. And you're hanging out here with us on this wonderful sporty sport Wednesday. And,
sports.
Yeah, we're doing the sports thing. That's little brother Nico, and it's me, Corey DLG, coming to you via Anchor during these Corona quarantine days. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Still chilling in my bunker. Haven't seen the sun in a very long time. I think I'm about to run out of vitamin D tablets.
Oh, once those are out, you'll have to let a rattlesnake bite you, suck the venom out, boil it, and take shots of it.
Sounds enjoyable, I guess.
That's what you have to do. It's science.
Oh, science.
I have a degree in that.
You have a science degree?
No, I have a degree, and that's what you have to do. It's science.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah, it's a 9-month certificate program.
Man, there's some great ones out there. Remember when Joey was like, "I'm gonna get a captain's license" 4 years ago, and he never did?
Yeah, but I think all it was going to cost was $80,
$50. Yeah,
it wasn't terrible. It was $80, and you had to you could take the test online, but you had to pilot a ship for 4 hours or something.
Something like that. It's not rocket science.
Missed opportunity. There's a lot going on. Big announcements this week. I guess this is going to wind up having to be one of those Corona-centric shows because a lot of it focuses around
that's sports right now. What are we going to do?
Right. Okay. So, baseball. So the Cardinals were one of the teams that people thought potentially could go far in the season.
Mm-hmm.
However, they then had I think 20-plus players test positive for Corona.
Their whole roster exploded.
So they had to... I don't think they forfeited. I think they just postponed 12 games, 13 games.
Insanity.
In a 60-game season.
There goes a sixth of the season. Whoops.
And now,
a fifth of the season.
And now the conversation is, do they need to make that up? Is it even worth making it up?
How can they even make it up?
Is it fair to make it up? There's a lot of problems involved in the baseball plan. And so the first hurdle becomes... First of all, the first hurdle becomes, can they even keep people safe? Because the Miami Marlins, allegedly, that incident occurred because some of the players ignored protocols and went to a strip club. Allegedly. So that was the story that kind of circulated under the surface, and I think Major League Baseball didn't have a problem with that because it kind of makes them look like the good guys a little bit.
Yeah, they're like, well, we didn't mess up.
Right. Obviously, the player broke quarantine because he's a 20-year-old with some money in his pocket, and it's not our fault. Kind of.
I don't know. It's not that much money. You're not giving them a whole lot, Major League Baseball.
Yeah, that's true. Talk about it. They don't get paid enough to be ball out. Although, if I had $1,000 in my pocket, balling out. So,
we know what you would do.
Well, listen, if I was an athlete, I'd probably do it twice as good,
Right.
So, but the Cardinals don't have that. They don't have that story leaking out. As a matter of fact, the story leaking out of the Cardinals at first, initially, was that it was just some clubhouse guys who had it and none of the players. But then very quickly, the whole team basically tested positive. They haven't really said how it got out in the St. Louis Cardinals side. And I think it's because they genuinely just don't know, because that's not how this works.
Right. It's very hard to do. What do they call it? Tracing or
contact tracing.
There you go. That's the word. It's difficult when you're doing so much. You're getting ready for a season. You're just like, oh, I worked out with this guy. Oh, I saw this person. Oh, I went here. He's like, there's absolutely no time. you'll look back and your whole team's sick, and you're like, oh, Jesus.
Well, and here's the real indicator that it wasn't going to work. This was indicator number one. Major League Baseball, when they announced this, they rounded up the Dominican players and the Puerto Rican players, and they flew them back in a couple flights together to save money.
Cool. Good job.
They didn't test anyone before they put anyone on a plane.
These people could have been on opposite sides of the country at this point. Like,
so they brought. I'm going to say brought in. I know the Dominican and I know Puerto Rico are both American. That's not what I'm saying. They exposed the rest of the baseball teams to potentially ill people without any quarantine process.
yeah.
That's not how this is supposed to work. So here's what's supposed to happen according to like the CDC, according to the guidelines. When someone travels into a new place, they're supposed to sit quarantine for 14 days. Then after 14 days, they can then, now if you're going to be doing the testing all the time, then fine. Test them like 5 or 6 days in a row. And when you get the results back on the 6th day and it's all still negative, if you want to let them out early, that's fine because it's safe. It's a safe confirmation probably at that point. They don't have it. But the incubation period can go up to 10 to 14 days depending on who you talk to. So this idea that they brought everybody over, didn't check anybody, integrated them into their teams, and then told the teams only go to work and come home. Don't do anything else. And then expected that to stop coronavirus is just dumb.
Right. Considering all the lengths that basketball went through to create the bubble.
And the bubble hasn't been perfect. The bubble has had minor glitches. But the bubble is the closest method to getting this right.
Right. Because they're all in one place. They're all not supposed to be going out nor bringing anyone in. Everyone stays put.
As a matter of fact,
not all the teams are playing. It's a short time.
Yeah. Like they're not trying to play a whole season now.
Right.
Baseball kind of, I think, missed their window to be America's sport because they could have really stepped in June 1st.
No, yeah, for sure, but they couldn't hammer out any kind of agreement because they're terrible and stingy.
Okay, let me ask you this because I completely agree with what you just said out loud, but I'm also curious to see. You sometimes surprise me with how you view things.
Okay.
How much of that do you put on the owners, and how much of that do you put on the players?
Like, what do you mean?
The fact that they couldn't get a deal done. Who do you put that on?
Oh, completely on the owners.
Really? Okay, why? Why do you say that?
As an owner of an organization, you have a responsibility to make sure that, your players are taken care of. You stepped into this game. It's not like you hired them to do something and then you are getting weird about paying them to do their job. Like, come at me, bro. Like, this is like, if you went into work and your boss was like, hey, so I know you've been working extra hard and things have been kind of weird at the office. Like, do you think I could maybe pay you a little bit less this week? Like, no, you have a salary that we agreed on. It's contractual.
Listen, I love what you're saying. However, people do come in and they get pay rate deductions. It does happen in business. I don't think it's ever appropriate. I think it's totally crap.
No, yeah, it's total garbage. And that's just my view on it. Especially when you're talking about, sports. This is like one of the biggest industries on the planet.
True. And it's one of those weird ones where there's not a lot of people involved in it. Like, the TV contract is huge, and there's only 30 teams, and there's only so many players. So there's kind of a limit on the amount of people who get a piece of the pie. So as much money is there, it's hard to believe that baseball can't afford to pay the full salaries for these players.
Right. And the deals were so bad, laughably bad.
Yes, yeah. And they still are, I think. I think your max guys are taking home between 12 and 14,
which is awful comparative to what they're supposed to. Because the thing that really sucks about this year is that it's not like we're getting a time reset. Like, you're still getting older. Like,
Right, exactly. You still are losing this year of productivity on your life. Now, granted,
It's not with like the harshness of a whole season.
correct. That's what I was about to say. Granted, it's almost like if you make it through this healthy, you basically just stayed warm for a year. So that aspect is good. But for the pitchers and stuff, Justin Verlander, for example, has a strained forearm. He's really pushing to try and come back, but with the shortened season, he's limited on how many appearances he was going to get anyway.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird thing for somebody like him.
Right. And because the season is so short comparatively, well, it's too long anyways, but
Yeah. But think about this. So if I'm a major league pitcher, and typically I make around 25 to 30 starts a year without injury. If I'm healthy all year. In a 60-game season, at most, I will start 12 times.
yeah, like, is it even worth it at this point?
And for a lot of these guys, it's kind of an impossible thing. So think about if you're a Cardinals pitcher. And pitchers are really unique in the sense that when the season ends, a lot of them basically turn off their bodies. They do nothing for like 6 weeks to just let everything heal.
Yeah, you only one of the favorite quotes. I think I heard this in my health class. You only got so much rotary cuff.
Yeah, that's it. And then when it's gone, it's gone. So they calm their body down, and then they slowly ramp it up so that they can sprint for the season and then shut it down again.
Right.
Now imagine you're trying to do that for a Corona season, where first of all, you never knew when you were going to start, so you never knew when to really ramp it up.
Right.
Then when you finally got your start date, you were so close to it, you had to like accelerate the run up. Now your team misses 2 weeks because of this, and now they want you to come back and be the ace. Like, the up down of it is gonna just totally obliterate any kind of consistency.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Now, part of me sort of thinks baseball is the sport of whiners and wimps as far as athletes go. And that even though pitching is physically strenuous, the idea that the routine is what makes it easy feels a little BS-y. Like, you're paid to perform. You know, Peyton Manning can play on a Thursday or a Monday or a Sunday. It doesn't matter to him. So if he can figure it out, why can't you?
And he's done football for like 12 years.
Right. So he played almost 20 years in the league. So if he can do it, where are you at? You know what I mean? So, like, to me, there are instances where I feel like pitchers and baseball players are coddled in that sense.
And maybe it's just a culture thing that like I just don't understand because I hate baseball with a passion.
That's fair. That's fair.
And maybe the sport's not that bad, but at least the organization is awful.
Oh, for sure. The way they've devised the system is terrible too. And maybe it's because they're always the first ones to like address cultural things, that they're sort of the villains. Do you think that might be part of it? Like, they were really the first ones to deal with black athletes, to deal with black players, because the other sports come along later as a national interest, and black players are already playing.
Right, but like it's hard to even make that argument because like there's quite a few black players that are prominent, obviously, like Jackie Robinson and stuff, as like they're like firsts, but they're really like, and they're prolific, but they're not nearly as like, you know, they're not like these people aren't like nationwide, like super big, like later down in baseball's like timeline, right? Like there hasn't been a really big black player in a really long time.
Yeah, I think Barry
versus
Bonds
the other
is probably
sports.
the last big black icon in baseball.
Right. There hasn't really been the sport for them. It's always been basketball. For me, it's always been basketball and football. Like my entire life has just been that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think I agree with that. The point I was maybe kind of trying to circle was
because they're first.
Yeah, so like it's easier to hate baseball because, like, okay, say the movie 42, baseball is kind of featured as the villain and made to look racist and old and white and crotchety, when really probably any of the sports would have been at that time. It's just there wasn't a need to be because By the time they became nationally recognized, black athletes were already part of it.
Like I don't disagree with you because like yeah, it's like starting, right? Like when you start a movement like that, like it's hard to like you're gonna have people that are obviously against it.
Right. And so it just so happened that most of them wound up being in baseball because baseball was kind of the sport that broke these rules. Now I know there were other instances, and I know there's a first of in every sport, but baseball is sort of known for being the first national sport to break a black athlete into prominence.
That's fair. I think that's true, but also like just because you're the first doesn't mean you have to be the worst.
No, but in this instance, it just means you will be. You will forever be, because you were first. There's going to be the terrible stories. There's going to be the awful pushback. There's going to be the people who say we shouldn't have done it. So there's always going to be those stories in baseball of otherwise great baseball players who probably said and did stupid stuff in that moment where they were like, I ain't going to play on a field with no N-word. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I mean, that's true. I mean, that's just. I think that's just the reality of the world we live in versus
I totally
really
agree,
taking sports.
I think that's what makes it easier to hate baseball.
If you really think about it, baseball right now is more of a Hispanic sport anyway.
It really is. It really should be our sport, except it's like the most unfair. Which sounds pretty Hispanic, honestly.
Yeah.
It does. It just sounds like it's kind of right up our alley to support something that we don't really get to take advantage of.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump out to a break. When we come back, we got more Nerd Thug Sports coming your way. The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights. They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month. Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeout is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who've been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
This is Rudy Tomjanovich, and welcome to Nerd Thug Radio.
Welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports, right here on 104.5, 106.1, these sister stations, and we're streaming worldwide at IRLoneStar.com. This is Corey DLG, and with me as usual is little brother Nico.
Hello, hello.
And like I said, this was going to be the coronavirus-specific episode.
Is it though? I feel like the last 9 have been that.
Well, but this one's for other reasons.
I guess that's fair.
So this one, so we started with baseball because baseball is the experiment. I think it's failing.
Yeah, I 200% agree with that statement.
The Marlins are in the middle of returning to play, and so are the Cardinals. But I don't know,
it's just been a crapshoot of a season.
Right. So I guess what they'll have to do is they'll have to go back and look at the end of the season if those 12 games help someone or hurt someone, and then play them out in that instance. But
that's so many games.
Right. But even then, the spider web of it all dictates that it's going to matter.
You can't miss a fifth of the season and be like, well, those really didn't matter.
Yeah, and if you do decide that 20% of your season's irrelevant, I guess we have other questions?
Yeah, then it becomes, why is baseball 182 games?
Right. If 12 of them don't matter in a 60-game season, then does that mean that 32 don't matter in a 162-game season? And most people would probably tell you that no, they don't.
And then we go to we should have a more concise baseball season, and then people are going to be like, but what am I supposed to watch for 9 months?
Right. And then when you go to 130 games, you could probably still ask the 20% question again and chop it down. Eventually, you get to 40 baseball games.
That's like, it's a way more. Like, even if it was the same as basketball, just make it 80 games, done.
The owners would never. You got to this number, they're never going to come back from it.
No, I don't think so at all. But it's because I hate baseball.
They're never going to come back from it. Just in the same way that
think of the quality of life increases you would from an 80-game baseball season.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I mean, listen. In a regular year, there's times when, thank God, baseball's on TV because nothing else is.
Yeah, like that. Like, maybe it's just to fill the voids in our very sad lives.
I just meant, as somebody who covers sports once a week, we would run out of stuff to talk about a lot faster if it wasn't for baseball.
Yeah, but it's just me complaining about baseball for 30 minutes.
Right, but that's good radio.
Yeah, I guess.
But the bigger problem is that college football, the Mountain West Conference, started the revolution.
What was that?
They announced on Monday that they weren't going to play.
Who weren't going to play?
The Mountain West Conference announced on Monday they were going to play 0 fall sports this year.
Was it college football?
That included college football.
Oof.
So then the Pac-12 and the Big Ten followed suit.
No games?
No games. No fall sports whatsoever.
Man, if you're a senior, just get slapped, homie. You're dead.
Okay, so I was going to ask about that, but I'm going to come back to that. So the SEC and the Big 12 haven't said anything yet. Now, the Big 12 and the SEC essentially overlap a certain region of the country that politically tends to lean a certain direction. And in the matter of the coronavirus, has tended to feel specifically a certain way.
Like you feel some type of way.
Thank you, Drake. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Let them play. They're 20. They'll be fine.
I was reading an article, and it was actually about sports reporter here. It was actually about the Lululemon franchise in California.
Good for them.
And one of them is indoors at an outdoor shopping strip.
Uh-huh.
So, like, it's like the mall is like a park kind of a deal.
That's awful, but okay.
The stores are all indoors, though. Well, I think it's like San Diego, where it's always 85.
Okay. Well, as a Houston, where it's always 200 and 300% humidity, like, that's okay, I guess.
Yeah, like, someone pitching it to us would have to explain that it's not going to be here before we could even agree to it. But
first reaction was, that's disgusting. And it's like, no, it's nice outside. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. No, not here, buddy. Not here.
I was like, why would anyone do that?
Right. So in California, after the first week, the governor stepped in and passed a rule where it was like, hey, we opened too fast. Now businesses inside of buildings are going to be closed, blah, blah, blah. Well, Lululemon notified the people who work at this specific location, because it's an outdoor mall but an indoor store, that their store didn't fit the criteria of stores that are closing.
Nice.
So they needed to keep coming to work. Then a member of the store got coronavirus, and essentially the article was about this is the type of company who wants to get a shield from the coronavirus lawsuits that the Republicans are kind of putting up. But what brings it into context of this college football story is they were talking about how there's a particular group of shoppers who come in who just don't even believe in the virus and don't want to wear the masks. And initially, Lululemon didn't empower the employees to say wear a mask. Well, then one of the employees got coronavirus, and Lululemon blamed it on the employees. They said, we reviewed the security footage of the store, and we noticed you guys aren't adhering to the cleanliness protocols we put in place when we said open up. And the entire store almost revolted because they were like,
that wasn't there.
Well, the protocols were like wash your hands every 30 minutes, social distance, wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we can't do any of those things once customers are here. And Lululemon was like, oh, I guess you're going to blame the customers. Oh, okay. All right.
All right. I see it.
And they never really... I think the store still remains open. They have, however, now allowed the employees to tell customers they must wear a mask to come in. It's just kind of overall a mess. But it kind of goes back to this idea that there's a certain group of people who just don't buy in. They just don't buy in.
Right.
And so they're more than happy to watch somebody like the SEC play football for their entertainment.
Well, like, as much as college sports is the absolute fraud that it is, I think they could use some of their billions of dollars to do something nice for their players and set up like a semi-bubble for them.
Well, you gotta remember, they're still college students. They can't be given special treatment. The NCAA says they're students; they're not athletes.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But the NCAA being the probably my most hated organization on the planet because they don't have any form of power. They just tell you you're wrong,
and you agree with them and say thank you.
Right. You agree with them and say thank you as they rob and steal and punish with no regard for people's livelihoods
or their freedom.
Yeah, God, the NCAA is literally...
It's the most un-American thing I've ever heard of, and everyone loves it.
I don't understand. I don't get it. They're literally the worst.
So to me, there's like a group of things that are distinctly very much un-American, unpatriotic, anti-freedom, that are just bedrock institutions in America that everyone's just like, no, it's cool.
What are the other ones?
They're more political. So, like, for this show, I won't get into them. But, like, there's a lot of, like, historically, the McCarthy Commission, that's a totally un-American idea.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
It's a completely un-American concept. Like, the Constitution literally says do whatever you want. That's what the First Amendment says. Believe what you want, say what you want, chase what you want, do what you want. As long as you don't endanger other people's lives, and as long as what you want doesn't infringe on other people's freedoms.
Right.
So in theory, based on that, it's okay if someone wants to be a communist.
See, that's where you're wrong, because communism is the most anti-American thing on the planet.
Is it, though?
That's
The
absolutely.
interesting thing. I don't think it is.
I 100% think it is.
You think communism's anti-American?
I think communism is the antithesis to America.
I think you got a little FDR in your JFK there.
Super.
I think if you really look at what communism as a concept is, I think
because communism is all about theft, and I'm not about that.
It's not about theft.
It is. It's a seizing the means of production. It's a state-controlled everything. You know how anti-American that is?
It's the state run by the people, though. It's where
is it the people? Because it's never the people.
Well, when corruption comes in, it's when it fails. So, like,
it's called power dynamics, and people don't work like that.
They just don't. You're right. No, you're totally right about that part. The power dynamics are what corrupt the people, and then that's when it becomes untenable. But the idea that in the 1950s they were literally hunting people and blackballing them from ever working again if they believed in communism is un-American as a concept.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I genuinely believe that communists should exist, but I don't agree with them, and I vehemently disagree with their belief system.
And I think their beliefs in a vacuum are American in concept, in the sense that it's about and literally for the people. the idea would be that people were running everything, and that is what America really is. That's the folk song of America, that the people run it and make it, and anybody can do anything, right? That's the folk song. But the reality is, even on both sides of it, the reality is power has corrupted the reality.
I don't know. I don't think that's what communism is all about. I think it's gotten a very clean wash of like how awful it truly is, even as a concept.
Oh, I think everything does. I think history is very kind to all the big ideas, democracy included, America included.
And that's because America's the greatest country on the planet.
Yeah, obviously, duh. Market,
duh.
Check. But I think because we easily believe that, there's a lot of things we've forgiven and moved past and forgotten about the formation and the history of America.
Yes, I don't disagree that the history of America is not clean, and we can all agree about that. As you know, humanity in general has been pretty awful. Correct. In most of its endeavors. Although
anytime somebody gets a little bit of power, they turn. It's a pretty fast process.
Yeah, I mean, even in like smaller societies, this is true.
Even Ted Cruz, the great Ted Cruz.
Didn't they say they could literally kill him and then no one would say anything?
Yes, the quote was,
if someone shot Ted Cruz in
front
the Senate
of
floor,
Congress, you wouldn't find a witness.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the most brutal line. I heard that on NPR.
Yeah, and it was another senator who said it.
That's so wild to me.
He is disliked literally by everyone. And the interesting thing is, I don't
know how he got elected. Like Dan Crenshaw, like is like Texas as heck. He's got an eye patch. He's a veteran. He shoots guns. He's cool. Like, how did we get Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz is the guy your parents think they love, or your parents pretend to love. You know how, like,
I didn't think Dad liked Ted Cruz.
He did. Ted Cruz is the thing we say in public we like about America that when we go home we laugh about.
Yeah, no, I don't like Ted Cruz.
Like, the idea is like, oh, he's so go get you, and he's folksy and churchy, and he's smart, but he still believes in religion, and you know what I'm saying? Like, he's all the things that out loud we say we want, and then when we get in a room and someone's like, yeah, he's kind of mousy, he asks a lot of questions. Like,
yeah,
turns out we don't really like any of those things.
We just don't like Ted Cruz here, and apparently no one else does either.
Nobody likes Ted.
But
he's not going anywhere. He won a second term 2 years ago. He's got 4 more years.
Politics for you. What are you gonna do about it?
You know what's weird?
Huh?
4 million Republicans voted for him last year. 4 million Texans hated Beto more than they hated Cruz.
Yeah, it's because Beto O'Rourke's fake.
I think it's because Beto O'Rourke, like, he didn't even try to be a little bit Texan.
No, he's not Texan. He's not real.
I think he's real. Like, I think that was.
He's a fake person.
I don't think
he's not. He's an AI controlled by a computer program.
I just don't think he's very into Texas.
No, and you know what we don't like in you know what we don't like in Texas? People who don't care about Texas.
That's true. Although he also got 4 million people to vote for him. You know the difference in the election was 200,000 votes out of
real
8
small.
million people.
That's crazy small. That's why it's important to vote.
That is why it's important to vote. That is a good point. Register and vote. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about The Adventure Begins. We're going to finish talking about college football, and we're going to find out some other stuff to talk about.
This is just a politics show now.
And we'll be back. The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights.
They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month.
Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeout is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who have been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
Hi, this is Kevin Smith, former Dallas Cowboy, Texas A&M Aggie as well, and I want to say what's up to Nerd Thug Radio.
What's up, Conroe? Welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports right here on 104.5, 106.1, these sister stations. And, of course, we're still streaming worldwide at IrelandStar.com and also RTF Sports Network. You can catch us streaming there as well.
Yeah.
Sports. Nico is, of course, correct. Make sure to vote. It's incredibly important. Everyone make sure to register. We are about 100 days out from the election. It's kind of a big deal who's president.
Yeah, just maybe a little bit.
This has actually been a really interesting 4 years. If you're like a political science student, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's probably people in your life who've been driving you crazy for the last 30 years who say stuff like, oh, it doesn't really matter who's president. Both parties believe the same stuff, blah, blah, blah. This particular president has sort of shown just how much the executive branch can do if they're left to their own devices. Like, the Senate has sort of been compliant in letting him do whatever he wants, and so there's been a lot of times, for example, like, no matter how you feel about Obama, the executive orders didn't come as fast and as furious and as often, and weren't challenged as much in court, and didn't lose as often in court, but there still wasn't that much confusion coming out of the Oval Office as there has been under President Trump.
I think that's more to do with the politician careers versus someone like Donald Trump, who's completely out of left field.
But why do you think the Republicans still? I mean, because I do agree with that. That's part of it. But even that part of it, you still, like, Mitch McConnell should still be maybe in the room going, "Hey, listen, we can't be on board with this." Like, you know what I mean?
I just don't think he listens.
That, you know what? That might be part of it. And again,
I think he has people in the room where he's like, "Can I do that?" And they're like, "Probably not." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to try anyways."
Right. And Donald Trump is real big on perception versus reality anyway. Like, he still gets to tell you that he tried to help.
I'm doing the best that I can.
Right. It's everyone else's fault that I can't do this, not mine.
Well, when the checks and balances come in, right?
That's supposed to be the point, but it sort of proves why voting is important, because this president has been able to do a lot that no other president ever, like the ethics thing where they Kellyanne Conway has gotten in trouble probably like 15 times now for violating the Hatch Act or something like that, where you're not supposed to endorse private companies when you're a federal employee on federal time, and she's literally the White House spokesperson. So she'll be getting interviewed on Fox News, and she'll be like, "Oh, by the way, buy Ivanka Trump stuff." That's a clear violation. But it turns out the punishment for that is totally voluntary.
Yeah, we use the honor system around here,
right? So when you find out that a lot of the stuff that's always been like, "Oh, well, the president can't do that," and you start to find out, like, well, no, technically they can. They just never have, not since 1882 when the last president did it, and Senate said, "Please don't do that again," and every president and Senate has agreed. And you're like, well, that's not the same thing.
It's called a precedent, Corey. We hate them.
Right. And so then when
See, that's the kind of thing that like a lot of people don't. That also shines a lot of light on like the things that they can and can't do. Where it's just like you're telling me that this wasn't a rule anywhere, and they're like, no, we never wrote it down. Like we just kind of all agreed that it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah,
It's like you mean you just took one wild card to throw your complete system out of whack.
and that sort of showcases the failing of the modern political party, or if you're in favor of him, it showcases how great he is that he can break the system that you so vehemently oppose. Like, but the reality is, who you vote for has a lot of precedent. So make sure to register and make sure to vote. Because
Do your part.
Do
It's
your
only
part.
a democracy if you're informed.
Oh, that's the other thing. For God's sakes, use your Google search bar, people. I've been catching so much flack. We'll talk about it on Nerd Thug Radio on Friday, but I've been catching so much flack for just like posts
Googling
that I'm putting
things.
where I'm being honest and people are like mad at me, and I'm like, what are you mad about? Like, you were the guy posting fake news, like not me. But so
You're gonna
yeah, don't be mad at me because I laughed at you. Like, please. But yes, register to vote, and also make sure to go buy The Adventure Begins comics, games, and more. Tell them all about it, Nico.
Right, they still got the free comic book summer coming in hot. They're still on regular hours, although you have to wear a mask if you do come inside. They do have curbside and delivery services still available if you want to stay super safe. Free comic book summer is running all the way through September 9th. Come in every week, get your free stuff, get a little stamp in your little passport, turn it in for loyalty points. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Come to the store, say hi, wear your mask, be safe. Lovely staff, fantastic store, always clean. Me and the boys have gone there a couple times now, and it's just been a fantastic time.
Yeah, clean, well lit, family friendly. They got all the nerd games. They got the card games. They got the tabletop gaming. They got the big board games that people play. They've got the demo section, and they have my comic books on hold, and they'll put your comic books on hold for you too if you want. That's The Adventure Begins, comics, games, and more, right there on 1488 in Conroe, making it happen. Go support local. Spend some money in the community. They employ your citizens to make a living, so go help them out.
Yeah.
Overall, I don't. Overall, I think the SEC is going to plow ahead with its plan to play football.
Oh, is that what we're talking about?
That's what started all of this. I think the SEC is going to plow ahead with its plan to play football, regardless of the outcome, regardless of illness. If the starting quarterback and the entire offensive line for Alabama all get COVID, they're not going to stop playing. They're going to play right through.
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. Probably.
Now the Big 12, I don't think the Big 12 has the in wrestling when they couldn't say balls on the air, they said intestinal fortitude, and I got kind of attached to that as a clever turn of phrase. I don't think the Big 12 has the intestinal fortitude to go forward if they have a major program. Like if UT gets together for training camp and 10 players catch corona, I think the Big 12 shuts it down.
Yeah.
If Oklahoma starts up their training camp program and the coach catches COVID, I think they shut it down. I don't think Big 12 has the intestinal fortitude to make it through a season. Also, I think their smaller schools they're not football focused enough that they can afford to run a whole season.
Yeah, that's
the other
really
thing. There's no ticket sales, there's no concession sales, there's no revenue from the shirts and the banners and the flags.
Yeah, that the players get none of anyway. So really, if you think about it, this is the best deal the players have had in ages.
Free college, finally,
Yeah.
Finally free college without having to break their neck to get it.
Exactly. Or their legs, or their careers, or their futures.
And then be cut once they're injured.
Exactly.
I do think this is the best opportunity for the players have ever had. One interesting thing is...
Who would have known? It only took not having a season to have the best season for players.
Right. The interesting thing is without football, there's some conversation that some schools financially won't make it.
Which is garbage.
You don't believe that for a second? You don't think there's going to
No,
be? Do you think how many colleges do you think will shut down due to lack of funding?
0.
Okay, all right, interesting.
Okay, that's incorrect. How many do I think should shut down because of lack of funding? 0. How many do I think actually will? I don't know. Maybe 20, 10. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's a lot of schools.
There are hundreds of colleges. I think you're going to see about a 15% closure rate among the large land-holding institutions of colleges.
Because the thing that doesn't make any sense to me is that we've come to a point where college is so expensive and tuitions are so high, and somehow you still need the millions and millions of dollars extra on top of all of your other programs.
Well, here's the thing that no one talks
from
about.
Football.
Well, and here's the thing no one talks about is the alumni make massive donations to these programs.
Oh yeah,
and that
I'm looking
money,
at you, U
where
of
does
H,
that go?
billion-dollar donations.
Right. That money just kind of floats in the ether secretly away, and they still make the labs like apply for government grants to do experiments and blah blah blah, and they do that more for notoriety than the money, but they use the money to run the labs anyway. Colleges run a little bit like a business, a lot of it like a business, and I think there will be some who, instead of having a tough year, will just simply pack it in.
Which absolutely just boggles my mind because
well, you're going to find out. Here's what will happen is as they go back through those colleges and look over stuff, you're going to see stuff like just massive abuse of funds, people overpaid, people involved.
Oh yeah, no, I don't doubt that for an absolute second because that's how all these are. A lot of these colleges will have tons of administrators, hardly any teachers, and be like, there's 50 professors on campus and 100 administrators, and you're like, isn't this ratio a little backwards?
Well, I saw one of the documentaries on Netflix about like the big money in private in colleges and blah blah blah, and you're talking about the executive class like growing in these colleges, and it's true they have. They listed like 7 different titles that they regularly see on college like charters now.
Uh-huh.
And those 7 titles have grown something like 400% over the last 15 years. And they're all administrative titles. Like, I don't remember what they are specifically, but they're like weird words that you see only when you go to colleges.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. Family of education. There's always good people that are going to abuse it.
And so I think what you're going to find
my mom likes to call it the stepping stone.
I think it was TCU or Abilene Christian. It was a black college here in Texas about 10 years ago where the dean they pressed charges on the dean for fraud, and it came out that basically about $4 million went missing that she had used for just like her own personal checking account.
Awesome.
Right. And she tried to say like, oh, these were expenditures that were promised to me, et cetera, et cetera. I was within the terms of my contract. And I don't remember what the outcome of the case was. I don't remember if she even she may not have even gone to jail. But she definitely took, like, it was like between $2 and $4 million was missing from like the general fund. And it was like, it wasn't even like concealed. It was like checks written like a car dealership and stuff for her. You know what I mean? Like,
awesome. Yeah. Like just not even trying to hide it.
Right. Just general, just shenanigans. And so I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of colleges that can't make it without football. Also, I think there are going to be colleges, like let's say you're in the Pac-12 and you want to play this year. Like, do you reach out to the SEC and ask to play 1 year with them?
Can you even do that?
I mean, I guess you have to ask the godfathers of the NCAA, but I'm pretty sure they're going to allow it.
That's a hard bargain, getting somewhere because you're special treatment, because you're an athlete.
Right.
I don't know about that one, Chief. That sounds anti-American to me.
But I think it's weird to me that half of the major programs in college football were like, nah, there's no way to safely do this. And I think they were looking at things like baseball and things like the NBA and realizing they didn't want to invest those resources in trying to do this.
Well, they don't have enough because apparently they need every dime they can get from their football programs to make sure that they stay afloat.
Well, and especially if you consider that they would be paying to run the program, even though no money was coming in. So, like,
right.
The
This is
expenses are
just
gonna be the
all. This
same.
is all loss.
Exactly. The expenses are the same, but there are zero revenue ins. So this is literally just you losing money this season. And I think that's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think if you're a Nebraska and you probably really want to play, but then you start doing the math and you're like, okay, well, it's going to cost
More money to
$12
run
million
it with
to play
zero
football.
income.
Right. It's going to cost me $12 million to play, but I get no money coming in. Well, maybe not this year. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
And it's unfortunate, but that's sort of the decision-making process for a lot of these institutions is ultimately it's weird. They're treating it like a business now, but not when the players were like, at a business we'd get paid.
Correct. Well, welcome to the un-American world that is the NCAA, being the worst organization on the face of the planet.
Oh, dang. I'm going to let you have the last word on this one this time. So that being said, little brother Nico and myself, and on behalf of The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More, Nerd Thug Radio in general, same Nerd Thug time, same Nerd Thug channel. Be calm, be kind, be cool to each other, be wonderful, wash your hands, stay safe, stay healthy, stay clean, fight the power, Black Lives Matter. Thank you guys. Have a good one.